And the White House begins the new week with a new chief of staff. President Trump selecting current Homeland Security Secretary General John Kelly for his new chief of staff, replacing outgoing chief Reince Priebus. Kelly is expected to be sworn in tomorrow morning, right before a cabinet meeting. Mr. Trump apparently hoping Kelly's military discipline can bring order to the West Wing and help him get his legislative agenda back on track. Joining me right now to talk more about it is former Arkansas governor and Fox News contributor Mike Huckabee. Governor, good to see you. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you, Maria. Great to be with you on this Sunday morning.
Your thoughts on John Kelly as the chief of staff?
I think he's going to be great. Look, you can't get 4 stars pinned on your shoulder without being an extraordinary person, not only in organizational and logistical skills, but also in the ability to work with people, manage big and complex problems, and certainly running the White House is one of those. It may be his toughest challenge yet, but I don't think there's any doubt that he's up to the task. The big question for John Kelly is, without a real political background and without maybe the kind of connections with members of Congress and how Washington works as much, it'll be a learning curve. But let me again say, if you got 4 stars on your shoulder, you're not a slow learner, you didn't ride the short bus, he's going to be fine. He'll do a great job for the president.
Yeah, I think you're right, because people are looking for some discipline. Discipline on a lot of levels in that job. And do you think he's going to be sort of the gatekeeper for the president? For example, will everybody report into John Kelly before getting to the president?
Well, that's what needs to happen, but that's going to be up to the president. The president has a very different style. It's very open. The door's open. He invites people to just come on into a meeting. And you know, it's one of the things that I think has been challenging to President Trump, because I know people say, we want to run government like a business. But, Maria, government is not like a business. It's very different. And while you can do certain things in government that are business-like, it's never like a business, because you can't fire the legislative branch, you can't fire the judicial branch, you can't fire really the bureaucrats unless you catch them doing something on 4 angles of cameras that is a Class A felony. So the challenge for President Trump coming in from the business world is adjusting to the nuances, the complexities, the frustration, and the incredibly slow crawling nature of changing anything in government.
Yeah.
He's going to have to delegate some real authority to General Kelly for this to work right.
For sure. And of course, one of the big elephants in the room is the fact that they need to have a legislative victory. Will, General Kelly help on that front? The president is up this morning tweeting, basically nudging Senate Republicans once again on the health care situation, opening up the idea that maybe they're not actually done. The president this morning writes this: "Don't give up, Republican senators. The world is watching. Repeal and replace and go to 51 votes. The nuclear option, get the cross state lines, and more." So he's pushing for the ideals that he'd like to see in a health care bill. Is there any way you think that is still on the table?
Well, it should be. The fact is, there will be people who say, Mr. President, if we push that, there will be such a reaction. There's already a reaction against Donald Trump. It can't get any worse than it is. So if the Senate decides that they're going to go ahead and do a 51-vote majority on basically every issue, get some things done, I think the American people will forgive them how they did it, but they won't forgive them if they don't get something significantly done. I think this idea of repeal and replace has got to be kind of maybe changed to repeal and refer. The best solution is to repeal Obamacare, give it 12 months to play out so people can make the transition, and refer all of the federal health care dollars to the states. It's essentially what you see in the Graham-Cassidy bill, but I've been saying this for months. This is not a federal issue. The federal government shouldn't be involved in dictating health care, because Mississippi and Massachusetts both will approach health care for their citizens in a dramatically different way.
Yes, absolutely. You make a lot of good points, Governor. Okay, let's talk about what just went on at the White House and whether or not John Kelly is going to be able to put some stability and discipline. Obviously, Governor, your daughter got a big promotion. Sarah Huckabee Sanders has been doing very well. She's right in the thick of things, though. We saw that outburst by Anthony Scaramucci last week. You're a religious man. How did you feel about what you read from Scaramucci's rant? How's your daughter holding up?
I love the mooch. You know, he's a good friend to both of us, but I would have given him breakfast that would have included 2 bars of soap followed by strong coffee for some of the language he used, just because I don't think it's necessary. And I think Scaramucci is learning something. There is no such thing as off the record, not in politics. And every morning you wake up, you need to look in the mirror and say to yourself, the press is not my friend. The press is not my friend. And keep repeating it, no matter how nice they may be to you. Nobody gets a front page copyrighted byline by saying the president's a nice guy and doing a great job. They get it by showing controversy and some type of distraction. And so any time a person is dealing with the press, period, and especially the Washington press, and especially the press covering the president, be aware. But now, as far as my daughter, look, I think she can handle this. She's a tough kid. She's grown up in politics since she was a little kid. She's sitting around the kitchen table listening to people like Dick Morris read poll results when she was 9 years old and other kids were jumping rope. So, you know, I think she's going to be at least perfectly at the equilibrium. And one thing I've said, Maria, about Sarah, she's used to having questions asked of her over and over, the same questions, expecting different answers because she's got 3 preschoolers at home. So when the White House press corps keep asking her the same question, the reason she doesn't get all flustered by it is she's quite used to it. Yeah, she's doing very well, Governor, and you must be very proud. That's terrific. So do you think that the fallout from the outburst last week is dying down at this point? A new chapter tomorrow. John Kelly starts the job, trying to put some discipline in this White House. You think they'll be able to stay on message? Well, I think so. They need to get focused on tax reform. I wish they'd have done that first from the very beginning. I thought it was the more reasonable, the more doable thing than dealing with a repeal of Obamacare. I just want to remind people that back in 1993, when Bill Clinton was in his first term, and they spent all that time dealing with Hillary Care, and it went down in flames, it wasn't the end of Bill Clinton's presidency. He had an 8-year term. You know, this whole idea that the fact that they've had this glitch in trying to repeal Obamacare is the end of the world, well, that's only speaking of people who have a very short memory and can't even remember back just 24 years ago when Bill Clinton had that disastrous issue with Hillary Care, came on to do some pretty extraordinary things like welfare reform and tax cuts. The tech bubble happened. So, you know, let's not get overly excited because one piece of legislation didn't work out. Frankly, thanks to a few Republicans who acted more like Democrats than they did Republicans when the vote came. Yeah. You make a good point, Governor. So, okay, one quick question before you go. These IT brothers and this story of Imran Awan trying to flee the country, getting arrested as he tried to leave to go to Pakistan. There seems to be more here, Governor. What's your take on this story that we know that Debbie Wasserman Schultz kept him employed just until a week ago, even though he had been arrested on bank fraud charges? The big shock to me is that this is not the screaming headline on every front page of every newspaper in America. Here is a Pakistani-born IT worker with access to virtually everything in the Democratic files. He gets $4 million from the taxpayers, Maria. All told, between he, his wife, there was a total of 4 members of the family. He wires nearly $300,000 to Pakistan. There's fraud all over the place. This is a huge story, and it ought to be screaming on the lead of every paper and broadcast in America. Well, we've been following it. We've been covering it, Governor, and we will get to the bottom of it to see if it's more than bank fraud, because I think that's probably what the real story is. Governor, it's great to see you. Thanks so much for joining us this morning. Thank you, Maria. Thank you, Governor Huckabee there.